How are you? I'm good. Look at this comically sized fist. This means we're ready to rock, right? Leftover thing from my wedding that's just kind of materialized down here. Welcome back. It's Ground Zero Salem with Pat. Got some vinyl to talk about. A couple of 7 inches, a couple of singles, and a whole bunch of LPs, I think 9 of them, I picked up recently. We're listening to Leatherface, by the way. Cherry Knoll, debut. British, not Irish, as I said a few updates back. Punk band. Kind of roughshod melodic stuff. Definitely hooky, poppy kind of elements to it, but guys got these great kind of rough vocals that have been compared to Lemmy at different junctures, so judge for yourself. I think they're great. Their debut, Cherry Knoll, that we're listening to isn't quite as good as Mush or Fill Your Boots, the records that came after. Those are absolutely great, and it's kind of a crime they haven't been reissued, at least in a while. So track them down if you like what you hear. First up, New Candy 7-inch. Just saw these guys at the Palladium with a whole bunch of other bands. Knock Loose headline, so it was a packed out show. That band is blowing up, so is Candy. Candy is doing something a little bit different than a lot of bands right now. They're bringing in this whole concept of, you know, hardcore being a form of dance music and weaving in these kind of slight but noticeable influences from like the Manchester rave and house scene from the late 80s, something that I don't really know that much about because I was never a fan of that wing of electronica. You know, I liked plenty of industrial back in the day and stuff. But there's just little subtle things like certain beats, certain ways the guitars sound, very thick, dense, almost like shoegaze, like My Bloody Valentine thickness to the guitars, at least live. That's what they were kind of carrying out with. But there's still plenty of like Japanese hardcore influence, NYHC kind of breakdowns, integrity, metallic hardness, you know, demonic, you know, busts and everything like that. So they're doing something different, bringing in some very disparate and interesting influences. They pulled it off live great, in my opinion. I thought they were awesome. I'm glad I went. And this new 7-inch 2-song single, Super Stare and Win Free Love. I've only spun it briefly digitally, but they seem to be bringing that outside of hardcore influence to the fore a little bit more on this one, and it's great. I think it's one of the better things they've done. They just keep getting better right now, so check them out if that sounds like something interesting to you. Certainly one of the newer hardcore bands to come out that's really caught my ear. They're from Richmond, but I think they're one of those bands now that where all the members live in different places, like the singer lives in New York and there might be another member living somewhere else, one of those kind of deals. Yeah, Super Stare by Candy. Scope it. And I have the Blitzkrieg reissue single here. It came out on Splattered, Buried Alive, and Blitzkrieg. It's on gold. And I kind of love the center labels, the thumbs down with the old neat logo. Yeah, I mean, it's just killer new wave of British heavy metal. People have said it's one of the best singles from that scene. I'm apt to agree. You know, there's definitely none of that sort of like still trapped in the 70s kind of boogie rock on it, although this might have come out in the 70s, 81. It's straightforward, like powerful heavy metal. The song that I wasn't familiar with, which was Buried Alive, the first song is a ripper. You know, it's got a great like fast to mid-tempo, simplistic, like, you know, hammering kind of riff. Blitzkrieg, of course, covered by Metallica. Metallica really didn't change that much about it. For its day, it's a good, heavy, forceful fucking metal song. So pick that up on Splattered while you can. I know they sold out of the regular versions and they had gold left, but might be gone by now because Reed's selling out of that stuff real quick. Next up, a Ripping Corpse bootleg of all the demos on vinyl. I always want to say this in the voice of Carl from the Aqua Teen Hunger Force just because I know this is a Jersey band and it's such a goofy title for a bootleg. The Glorious Ass Ripping Demos. Yeah, so 3 demos: Death Warmed Over, Splattered Remains, and Glorious Depravity. The Death Warmed Over demo's pretty rough sounding, you know, probably done on a 4-track or something like that. Sounds great, though. I mean, I love stuff that's, like, rough sounding anyway. It's just very technical thrash. The vocals are still doing kind of like a more of a typical kind of thrash thing, where they go into some high wailing here and there. And the Splattered Remains demo, you can tell they're getting into death metal territory, although it's still kind of got sort of a tech thrash feel to it. I haven't gotten to the Glorious Depravity demo yet. Haven't gotten there. Just got this the other day. But yeah, fun listen so far. I'm sure the Glorious Depravity demo is awesome, because Dreaming with the Dead is a amazing death metal record from the early 90s. If you haven't checked out Dreaming with the Dead by Ripping Corpse, you really owe it to yourself to do so. Next up, a couple of Radio Rahim re-releases. This is the Sarcasm Demos LP, War Song. Has the War Song demo on side A and the Man of God demo on side B. This was a crossover band from New York. As always, Radio Rahim doing a fantastic job with packaging, digging out all these old flyers and stuff like that. Jimmy Williams, the drummer, went on to play drums in Nausea from New York and went on to sing for Maximum Penalty, two very different bands from the New York scene. And like a lot of people that got involved in New York hardcore in the mid-'80s, you know, these guys were from a metal background and kind of crossed over. The first demo is definitely very SOD influenced. You know, it's along those lines, really fast, you know, kind of thrashy riffing. The Man of God demo, you can tell they're going way more into a kind of a hardcore territory. It doesn't feel as metal to me. Another anti-Gaddafi song on here, Gaddafi Stomp. 'Cause You Suck, Gimme a Break. So, you know, teenaged thrash crossover punk kind of stuff from New York. Very good. Also, Radio Rahim. This is awesome. I'm glad this finally came out. This is the Psychos recordings. This was a legendary early 80s band that did a couple of demos. Played a lot of important shows back then. The very early 80s of the New York scene. At one point, Roger Murray, I believe before he was in Agnostic Front, played bass. And later on, I think he was the bassist first. And then not too long after, Billy Milano of SOD and MOD played bass. And it's just raw, early 80s style NYHC stuff. You know, certainly if you like Cause for Alarm, United Blood, 7-inch, just short, quick songs, but there's still a little bit of like kind of rock and roll. You know, I feel like just something about Something in the Water in New York just caused people to have more of a good sense of rhythm and have these ideas of like busts and breakdowns before it was even really a thing. But great stuff. There's one live song that Billy Milano sings on here. Great booklet, as you can see. And I think Colossal Man was a song that they did that was covered later on by Madball on their first 7-inch. That's where they got that from. And got some stuff that I picked up at Residency. Next up, Struggle from San Diego. Never owned anything by this band. I believe they had a split with Undertow, who I liked a great deal back in the day. This band was from San Diego. For some reason, I had it in my head they were from Seattle. It's probably because they had a split with Undertow. But it's very heavy, crunchy, early 90s, very strongly political, hardcore. Very outspoken band. If I'm not mistaken, members went on to be in The Locust and Tarantula Hawk, who underrated band. Tarantula Hawk, crazy, like heavy psychedelic, doomy stuff. But very of its time. Yeah, you know, very outspoken, good lyrics. You know, not into war, not into capitalism. You know the deal. So, music's good, very angsty, crunchy kind of shit. And then right after that, we have Typo Negative, Bloody Kisses. Kind of an expensive repress, but this is a grail record for me, a record from my childhood that I really needed to own on vinyl, so I shelled out for it. and it was worth it. This is a very quality jacket, very nice green vinyl, which I'll show to you. And, you know, it's Type O. Most people know Type O negative. My favorite's always been Slow, Deep, and Hard. And there were years where I didn't listen to this stuff at all. I didn't really like any Type O past the debut. After a certain point in my early 20s. And then, I don't know, past couple, maybe 5, 6, 7 years or so, I've been going back to this, remembering what I loved about it in the first place. I had a digipack version of this when I was a kid that I listened to Into the Ground that didn't have the jokey songs on it. Didn't have Kill All the White People or We Hate Everyone. And it had a completely different track listing, which was interesting. It's a really cool way to listen to that record, I feel like. But, you know, Swans influence, Sisters of Mercy influence, Beatles influenced, gothic heavy metal stuff. Doomy, bummed, tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic. You should know it. If you don't, check it out. You might like it. Proletariat, Soma Holiday. Kind of a black sheep of the Boston scene. Not unlike how the Crucifix were in Michigan. Super political, left-leaning, very post-punk influenced, and maybe some Crass records. You know, very, very rhythmic and almost weirdly, I wouldn't say dancey, but you know, got more of a mid-paced, you know, kind of odd rhythmic approach as opposed to all the bands that they were on with on the This Is Boston, Not LA comp, you know, not thrashy at all. Got some kind of Gang of Four kind of stuff going on, but a little bit more pissed. And very good. Another one that I'm like, I need to own this. I've seen this on the shelves and heard all about it for forever, and I love the comp song, so there you go. This came out on Radio Beat Records in 1983. A lot of this update is just me filling holes, as you can tell. Stuff that I needed, not needed, but stuff that I wanted in my collection. We got Death, Spiritual Healing. Out of all the classic Death material, like the first 4 records, it was my least favorite. I actually had an OG pressing of this at one point and kind of foolishly flipped it when I needed the money. But this is the Relapse reissue. Came out, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. These were pressed a lot. There must be, I don't know how many copies that they put out, but I see these everywhere, and they're pretty cheap now. So I figured, why not? Yeah, I don't have the sentimental attachment to this that I have to the other 3 for whatever reason. This one always just kind of missed me. I love Scream Bloody Gore. Leprosy's fantastic, and Human was the one that came out when I was getting into death metal as a kid. So I'm not sure what it is about Spiritual Healing. I still really like it. I mean, I still think it's head and shoulders above most death metal nowadays, for God's sake. But and James Murphy, of course, fantastic guitarist, lots of great leads and everything. Something about the production, something about the riffs, it just doesn't, it's not as strong to me. I don't know why that is, but it's still great, and I still need it on my shelf next to the other ones, of course. One of my favorite records up next from early to mid 2000s, the sophomore tragedy record Vengeance. I'm pretty sure this is a reissue. It's gotta be. It's nice. Almost kind of spot glossy logo there. Nice huge booklet. You know, I guess I'm out of touch with whatever people like, whatever the kids like these days, but according to the Axe to Grind podcast and some other stuff, like, people don't talk about tragedy as much anymore or regard them as an influence. There was a time where, I don't know, 10 years ago, where every guy in every band, at least one dude, was wearing a tragedy shirt all over the scope for different types of hardcore music. And the reason why is, songwriting wise, live, as far as their aesthetic goes, they were a force. They were incredible live. I've seen them at least 6 or 7 times, different fests like Chaos and Teos, and seen them all over the place. I saw them in Germany once, and they're just this, I mean, they cribbed certain things from Japanese bands like Crude. You know, there's some kind of Motorhead influence in there, Discharge, of course, but just what they do with their melodies and the trade-off Kind of deeper vocals and slightly higher pitched kind of yelling vocals. Just what they do is incredible. Their first 3 records are great. So if you get a chance, no matter what you're into, you know, if you like death and black metal, give Tragedy a shot. You know, if you've never heard of them, which I don't know, people under a certain age might not have. But great, just like apocalyptic, you know, let's try to stop the end of the world, corporations, you know, killing us kind of shit. Very bleak, very cool. I know Todd Burdett and possibly his brother as well are in that band Nightfells that are on 20 Buck Spin, and I haven't heard that new one yet, but that last record was really good too. It was like a doomier version of Tragedy, for the most part doomier and slightly more metal. Then we got Rippikolu. Oh god, finished. Musta Ceremonia or something like that. So kind of the last thing I'm really nuts about tracking down for Finnish DM here. This is a reissue that came out on Svart, I don't think that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years. And it's just great. I mean, you can't listen to the hype shit, you know, the popular shit in death metal right now, all the 20 Buck Spin stuff and, you know, Dark Descent stuff without recognizing these guys as, like, some of the Mac Daddies of that influence. Dark, crushing, slow, doomy death metal. Very heavy, tone-wise, just in the depths as far as just how deep and fucking bellowing that an overall sonic force can be. There's not really too much to say other than that. This is a demo that came out, I think, in 92 or 93, and then they broke up, and then they got back together recently. Haven't heard their recent stuff. I think I read it was pretty decent, though. But, yeah, I mean, we're talking 6 songs. Pretty long songs on this, so it's almost album length. But certainly, if you're into all that newer cerebral rot and what have you, kind of death doom stuff, spectral voice, all that type of shit, you need to listen to Rippikolu and fucking get into it, you know, compare notes. That's about it. A little disjointed, very caffeinated, but I gotta get to work, man. You know what it is. See you later.